Okay. Good morning. Good evening. Good afternoon. I think we are just waiting for Elon, who I've been texting with, and says he's on Starlink somewhere in the world. So hopefully he'll show up. But we'll find out. He's not responded to my latest text. But while I have you all, we're here to talk about commercial space. And I happen to have just written a book about commercial space called When the Heavens Went on Sale, which covers a lot of the stuff we're going to get into today. So I recommend you get it, because why would I not? It's an exciting time out in the commercial space world. I saw some people figure we were going to talk about real estate, but we are not. Hang on, Elon's texting. This is my first Twitter space, but I blame any technical difficulties on Elon. He's alive. He's texting. He's looking. It's the moment of the truth. Bear with me. Here we go, I think. You guys are excited about space. So many messages, so many weird messages from some people. And some good ones. I put a lot of questions down. I've got a bajillion questions. I think hopefully we'll have time for some non-space stuff too. But we shall see. Where are you? Hang on. I don't know what time it is for all of you guys, but it's 8 in the morning for me. Coffee's just kicking in. I see Elon's listening. How do we get him speaking? Need to find out about this cage match. I'm sure we all do. Elon, come to me. Aha, here we go. We're on the way. He's just muted.
Yeah,
there we go.
Elon here.
Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am good. You're at some undisclosed location on Starlink? Oh no.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just at a friend's birthday party here in Europe, so you'll hear some sounds in the background. And I tried doing spaces last night, but unfortunately the internet connectivity was very patchy. So we have the Starlink terminal getting activated right now, and that should help. So,
Well, let's see how we do. Yeah, I can hear you okay most of the time. You're coming just a little. Let's see how we do.
Okay.
We're going to talk space, I promise, but I think I would be remiss if I did not ask you about this cage match and how your training is going for that.
Well, I haven't started training yet, so.
Are you?
I suppose I will. If this does happen, I will train.
You will actually train. That's not usually your bag.
I do, spend my time according to what is needed, and I don't usually have to fight people, so I don't train physically.
I mean, Zuck is he takes this stuff pretty seriously. This could go badly.
Yeah, that's possible.
All right, we'll go to space. Unless you have other thoughts on the cage match.
I mean, I think it might actually happen, so yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll go to space. Well, okay, so I just wrote a new book called When the Heavens Went on Sale, and the book starts with SpaceX's first Falcon 1 flight in 2008. And, in this book, I argue that this became this inciting incident for this huge commercial space revolution that had lots of false starts in the past, but now, at least to me, seems well and truly underway. And, I was just curious if, 2008 was just 15 years ago. I mean, was there any part in your head that imagined, in 2023, not only where SpaceX would be, but that we would have dozens of rocket and satellite startups and that this would be such a real thing? Oh, I think we lost you. He's connecting. He's coming back, I hope. Starlink, somewhere in the Mediterranean, I assume. It's a tricky situation. I think there's lots of space junkies on here, but for those who are not space junkies, there's just a crazy world going on right now where a handful of governments had controlled space for decades. And like I said in the question, I think SpaceX had its success in 2008 with the Falcon 1 and really unlocked all this potential that had been built up and pent up and all this excitement among these engineers. And now we have it's very clear to me that commercial space has taken over and this is the future. Hang on, Elon's texting. I gotta add him back. Bear with me. I hope this works. We'll see. We'll give it a try for a little bit longer. See if we can get things to stick. Otherwise, might have to do this another time, which would be sad. Also, while we're waiting, this is the plus side of this is I get to do ads. Maybe not for you guys, but for me. We have a new season of my Hello World TV show coming in September on Bloomberg, on YouTube. It's a tech travel show. I think you guys will enjoy it. Oh, here we go. All right. You back?
Yeah.
Did you get my question before you dropped off?
No. Sorry.
No. Okay.
This one should stick. I'm sorry. I have to switch to. I don't know. Country side Italy right now. So
Are you on a boat or in a house?
connectivity is not good. Starlink hopefully will save the day here.
All right. All right. Should I jump in?
Hello?
Yeah. You ready? Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello?
Hello. I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah. Oh, hang on. I'm going to text you. Hang on. This is exciting. Why can you not hear me? Oh, now he's disappeared again. Hang on. Oh, God, he's connecting with all over the place. Well, let's give it a couple more minutes. We'll try one more time, see if this works. He's there as a speaker. Can't hear him. And like that, he was gone. Well, this is an exciting first time to use Twitter Spaces. You know, start small, build up, learn the ropes. Let's see. As I was saying, Hello World, wonderful show. Please check it out. I think Elon says he's gonna try one more time, come back. Maybe I should let's see if Siobhan wants to talk while we wait. Uh-oh. It's looking grim now. Elon's neither texting nor appearing on the Twitter space. Ooh, he's back. All right. Here we go. It's invited to speak again. We'll get him. Again, I urge you, please check out my new book, When the Heavens Went on Sale. All right, we'll try one more time. Okay, he's texting. Invite to speak. Done. Let's see how we do. It's a New York Times bestseller, don't you know? At least I'm not selling soap or something like that. It's a very good book. Ooh, I can see his little icon struggling to get on. It's fighting. It wants to get on. So many invitations to speak. It's not like Elon not to want to speak. Well, all right. I'm going to text him. Maybe we should reconvene. Hang on, just a couple more minutes.
All right.
Oh, he's back. Magic.
Yeah,
All right, should we give it?
10th time is the charm.
All right, we'll give it one more try. And then maybe we should, if this one doesn't work, maybe we should reconvene.
Okay.
All right, you ready? All right. So I was just asking you, I was going back to like the Falcon 1 days when you guys launched in 2008. I mean, I remember you were just this hopeful rocket company. You wanted to make rockets cheaper. Here we are 15 years later. I mean, there's a full commercial space revolution underway. There's dozens of rocket startups and satellite startups. I was just wondering if in your wild imagination, you thought this would happen in 15 years.
I didn't think it was impossible. So if you say my wildest imagination, I would say, yeah, probably it could have. This is not far from what I would have expected to happen. We've made more progress on the satellite front than I would have expected by now, and a little less progress on the on Mars, because Starship is really needed for Mars and for a base on the Moon. But overall, I think space today is vastly more interesting and vibrant than it was certainly 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. There'd been a lot of very wealthy people that had tried this in the past. There'd been some false starts. It seems like everything really started to click in the last few years. I mean, like, what do you think were the most dramatic changes that made this possible, that over the last 5 years we've seen this exponential increase in commercial space activity?
Well, the cost of access to space is dramatically lower today than it was in the past because of Falcon 9. And it's not just a question of cost of access, but there's also the just actual tonnage to orbit. Like you can't get around the tonnage to orbit. People think sometimes if you just apply money to a problem, you can solve it, but that's not true. The mass you can get to orbit, that's the mass you get to orbit. And Falcon 9 has helped a lot of small satellite companies create a business because the cost of transport is so much lower. In a way, it's sort of like the Union Pacific Railroad across the U.S., where it's like, how come there are all these businesses popping up in California?
Yeah.
Because now you've got a railroad, and previously you'd had to drag a wagon over the Sierras and the Rockies, and then occasionally eat your, fellow wagonauts, like the Donner family situation. So basically, the point is that it's like once you enable low-cost transport, you also create an opportunity for a lot of companies to create interesting businesses because it is no longer prohibitively expensive to get to orbit.
Yeah. Well, so
I think it's worth just identifying the difference between space and orbit, because most people think of those as synonymous, but really getting to space is easy and getting to orbit is hard, relatively speaking. So getting to orbit is like 100 times harder than getting to sort of say space, which is somewhat arbitrarily defined as 100-kilometer altitude. But you still actually have atmosphere at 100 kilometers, or just over 60 miles. So, yeah. So it's roughly 2 orders of magnitude harder to get to orbit than to space. So once you think of it as getting to orbit as opposed to getting to space, if you merely get to space and have no velocity parallel to the Earth's surface, you will immediately fall back down just like a cannonball. Yeah. So going up and staying up is all about orbit. And the space station is somewhat of a misnomer because it is anything but stationary. The space station is moving around Earth at 17,000 miles an hour. The space station is moving roughly 12 times faster than a bullet from an assault rifle right now. And it goes around the Earth every hour and a half. So roughly every 90 minutes, the space station does a complete circuit of the Earth. So I wouldn't call that stationary. I call that a space motion, not a space station.
Well, let's talk about orbit for a second, in low Earth orbit. In 2020, I think there were about 2,500 satellites in low Earth orbit. We're up to about 10,000 just over the last 3 years. It's on this exponential curve after being on a very, very steady curve for decades. There's a lot of people that bandy about figures. You guys have this massive constellation coming. There's other people that want to build one. Some people say 100,000 satellites in a decade, 200,000 satellites. I'm curious where you think this ends up in 10 or 15 years, what this computing shell around the Earth looks like.
So the actual question to ask, that's an approximation number of satellites, but the actual question to ask is the tonnage of satellites. So the way to think about any satellite constellation is how much does it weigh, in tons, and what is the useful throughput per ton? So any given constellation can be thought of in this way, or necessarily should be thought of in this way. So what actually matters is what tonnage do you have, and what is the useful bits of information per ton? So I think from a tonnage standpoint, it's going to be quite high. Perhaps on the order of 40 or 50,000 tons. But obviously this is speculation, not a promise or a plan. If you ask me for what I think my best guess is, we end up with something on the order of 50,000 tons of communication satellites in orbit. This is a big number for orbit, but a small number for anything terrestrial.
Yeah, but the trend has been, towards quite small satellites, and then now they're getting a little bit bigger again. I see the distinction you're making, but it's still quite an astronomical number, an increase in the number of satellites.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you obviously can't just count all satellites as the same, because that would be like counting a rowboat the same as a supertanker.
Yeah.
If it was a ship. And it's not a question of how many rowboats you have. It's a question of how much shipping tonnage you have. So that's not to say you can't do useful things with a small satellite, but if you're going to do heavy duty communications, like take serious, let's say 5% or 10% of total Earth internet traffic in orbit, you actually need a minimum amount of power for that. So you could say, to transfer that amount of information, you're going to need a certain amount of power, which therefore translates to an area of solar panels. And then, since it's a low Earth orbit constellation, you need batteries to operate while you're in Earth shadow. So there's not some magical way of getting around the tonnage requirement.
There are, there's days when it's very clear there's some days I wake up and I think the business case around Starlink totally checks out. You've got this global telecommunications provider, you're getting internet to billions of people that didn't have it. It creates this kind of glue, this connective glue around the planet. There's other days when it still seems like just an incredible amount of money to spend on something that may or may not work. I mean, I guess the business case must be totally clear to you, or do you have these same doubts sometimes?
The business case is not subjective, it is objective. If you can provide a compelling internet connection where the quality of the product and the price are competitive with terrestrial options, or often there are simply no terrestrial options, then you obviously have a business. So it's not super complicated. It's just how good is your internet and what's the cost?
Many people want to know an update on the Starlink IPO. Do you have any new thoughts on that?
It would not be legal for me to speculate about the Starlink IPO.
Aren't you guys are you're private, aren't you? I thought you.
No, we're private, but you cannot. It's I think against the regulations to talk with any kind of specifics about a future public offering.
Okay. When I tell people the number of satellites that we've already gotten to, they tend to their eyes get big, and they sort of had no idea this was happening. They always immediately are concerned, like, are we just doing what humans always do and just barging into this new area as fast as we can? Do we have any sort of sense that we can manage all this? And this is not a SpaceX specific question. This is, as everyone's rushing to try and get constellations up, it's a bigger question. You're doing things on Earth that are trying to sort of attempts at fixing some of the problems we've already created here. Isn't history just kind of repeating itself? Now, obviously, I called the book When the Heavens Went on Sale for a reason. This is a business now.
I'm not sure exactly what you're getting at, but obviously it wouldn't be a very effective business if it somehow failed. So it's also important to remember that space is very big. It's not like some. Space is bigger than people realize. You can put a lot up in space. I mean, you can think of it as concentric. Think of the Earth as sort of obviously us being on the surface of the Earth is a sphere, but being in orbit is like basically a vast number of Earth's surfaces, like a series of concentric spheres, and so. They're not filled with debris. They're filled with nothing. So it's not a super difficult thing to ensure that satellites do not collide, provided there is good coordination.
So, I mean, I agree with the premise, right? I mean, it's in everybody's rational interest to make sure this works. Otherwise, you've invested a ton of money for no reason. We have seen Russia, in particular, not always be a rational actor. A couple of years ago, they shot a missile into one of their own satellites. I'm curious. I mean, Russia seems like the wild card to me in this whole equation. They have a space program that's declining, and they have no commercial space startups to replace it. Do you have concerns that Russia remains a semi-rational actor in space?
Well, there's a lot going on in Russia right now.
Yes, there is.
I think they have, we're not their primary concern.
At the moment, correct. Do you have a? Do you have a? So you have no worries about debris fields, about these things colliding into each other at some point. It just seems to me that we're moving very, very fast as we do this.
Well, I'm not suggesting that we be cavalier about it. We're actually extremely perfectionist about satellite positions. They're monitored closely. satellites automatically maneuver to avoid even coming close to anything else. So it's not we don't see a lot of close calls that you would. It's not like when whistling past your ears type of thing. So now it is important to have communication. To make sure that various countries have close coordination in their satellite positions, so you don't go and do something that is easily avoidable, like putting a satellite that is in the exact same orbit as a Starlink satellite. But as long as there's coordination, this is not. This is a very tractable problem. It is not a difficult problem.
Are you guys making margaritas back there?
I'm at a friend's party. We can postpone this if you'd like.
No. I thought I heard a blender for a second. I was curious. No, it's going pretty well, I think. When you guys, SpaceX has basically started running laps around the competition in terms of rockets and is now the world's biggest satellite maker as well. The only other commercial company that launches on anything resembling a regular basis is Rocket Lab. Everybody else has really struggled. I'm curious what you think the competitive landscape looks like against SpaceX in 10 years. Is it more of a nation state like China or a company like Rocket Lab that's trying to build bigger rockets? Or is it, Blue Origin, which has been really slow but has limitless resources at its disposal?
We don't really think about the competition. So, we're just focused on getting people, a good area connection from space. And, if competitors succeed, that's great. If we don't really have any particular, we've launched competitor satellites. If it was our goal to block competitors, we would not have launched the OneWeb satellites because those were supposed to launch on a Soyuz. And then Russia basically nationalized the OneWeb satellites and refused to launch OneWeb satellites on a Soyuz. So they came to us, and we charged them the same as anyone else. We didn't charge them extra, and we launched their satellites. So I think that is obviously being quite supportive of a competitor.
Yeah, it's strange. And you feel like you don't have competition in the sense that you're just going to do what you want to do, or you don't think people can catch up to SpaceX?
As I said, I don't think about the competition. I think about how we can make Starlink better. I think about how we can make our rockets better. But anyone who spends time thinking about the competition is wasting their mental energy. It's just like in sports. If you see people who look at who they're racing against right before they cross the finish line and then lose the race.
Yeah,
So it's not. I don't know. Like this year, if things go well and we don't have a launch failure, knock on wood, SpaceX will put approximately 80% of all Earth payload to orbit. China will put approximately 10%, I think just over 10%, and then the rest of the world will do about 8 or 9%. So at least this year, if our luck holds, we'll do 80% of Earth mass to orbit. That's the key metric.
I obviously, there's a million questions asking for an update on Starship and when it's going to go again.
Yeah. So let's see. There are really a tremendous number of changes between the last Starship flight and this one. Well over 1,000. So I think probability of this next flight working is, getting to orbit is much higher than the last one. Maybe it's like 60%. It depends on how well we do at stage separation. So we made a sort of late-breaking change that's really quite significant to the way that stage separation works, which is to use hot staging, what's called hot staging, where we light the engines of the upper stage or ship while the first stage or booster stage engines are still on. So we shut down most of the engines on the booster, leaving just a few running, and then at the same time start the engines on the ship or upper stage, which obviously that results in kind of blasting the booster. So then you've got to protect the top of the boost stage from getting incinerated by the upper stage engines.
Yeah.
So this is something that the Soviets and Russians have used quite a bit in their rocket designs. The performance, there's a meaningful payload to orbit advantage with hot staging that is conservatively about a 10% improvement. Well, it depends on what it's being compared to, but let's say in this case, roughly 10% improvement in payload to orbit. If you basically just never stop thrusting. So that's a quote.
That sounds like a T-shirt. That's a T-shirt.
Yeah, never stop thrusting, Elon Musk. So, but basically, the moment the rocket stops its engines, it actually starts falling. So you actually want to, you don't want to be coasting. You don't want to be in a situation where the engines are not on, because you just immediately start falling back to Earth, unless you're already in orbit. So you want to have a kind of a non-stop thrust situation. I think we also had some concerns about. I think I mentioned. So, let's see. So yes. So you want to just, like I said, you want to start the ship engines before you've completely shut down the booster engines. In order to do this, you actually have to have vents, or that basically the super hot plasma from the upper stage engine's got to go somewhere. So we're adding an extension to the booster that is almost all vent, essentially. So that allows the upstage engine plume to go through the sort of vented extension of the booster, and not just blow itself up. So this is the most risky thing, I think, for the next flight. And we'll have to add a bunch of shielding to the top of the booster.
Do you have a best guess on when the next flight will be?
There's a lot of variables here that are outside of our control. We think probably the launch pad upgrades and the booster ship are ready in about 6 weeks. So that's the best of our knowledge right now. There's a massive upgrade of the launch site that's happening. So we're putting roughly 1,000 cubic meters of steel reinforced high strength concrete below the pad, and then on top of that we have sort of a steel sandwich, which is basically a very thick plate, two thick plates of steel that are welded together with channels going through it. So you basically have like this water-cooled steel sandwich, and then there are perforations in the top, so it'll actually shoot a lot of water out of the. It's basically, think of it like a gigantic upside down shower head. So it's going to basically blast water upwards while the rocket is over the pad to counteract the massive amount of heat from the booster. Like the booster is basically like the world's biggest cutting torch. It's with a massive amount of force. So it's not just heat, but also a massive amount of force. So we think we're actually going for overkill on the steel sandwich and the concrete. So that should leave the base of the pad in much better shape than last time. We'll also be doing a higher thrust to weight liftoff. So it will just spend less time. It will spend less time on the ground.
I know you've addressed this a little bit, but given everything you just outlined, do you have regrets that you didn't do this previously? This kind of infrastructure work?
Well, hindsight is 20/20. So yeah, of course we have regrets. But that is irrelevant. Like, what could we do without knowing the answer?
Have you also addressed and solved some of the engine issues that it looked like there were on the first stage?
Yes.
Could you you have any specifics on what you did?
There's a lot. The engines on the last rocket were somewhat of a hodgepodge. So those engines were built and tested over a period of a year. Some of the issues, it's going to get very inside baseball if I get into this stuff with basically about 0.1% of people knowing what I'm talking about. But
I think there's some people out there that are into it.
Yeah, about 1 in 1,000 people maybe. But we have what's called a hot gas manifold. It takes the fuel-rich gas from the fuel side power head, transfers it to the main chamber, transfers it to an area above the main chamber where it then mixes with aux-rich gas and goes to the main chamber and combusts. We made a number of improvements to that hot gas manifold, which is arguably the riskiest part of the engine. It's also something that is subject to hot gas leakage, which is a sort of methane-rich hot gas leaking through the bolt holes of the fuel manifold. So because you've got it's something that it gets very hot. So when something gets very hot, it can gap. So an improved design of the hot gas manifold, as well as higher torque on the bolts of the hot gas manifold to minimize potential for hot gas fuel leakage at high pressure is perhaps one of the single biggest improvements. So, man, I'm in the wrong place here. So, I think we'll have to call this in about 5 minutes. So, if there's questions you want to ask, I would just choose them carefully.
Can we go rapid fire?
Yeah.
All right. How much has SpaceX invested in Starship to date?
I don't know the exact number, but it's over $2 billion. Maybe this year would approach 3.
Is that about in line with what you expected going in?
It's not far from it.
Somebody was asking, what's the most difficult technical challenge that still needs to be solved to get Starship to regular commercial flights?
We don't know with accuracy what the most important thing is because we've not yet reached orbit. If we knew what it was, we would actually fix it before launching. So in launching, what you're doing is trying to resolve the unknowns, which you cannot know before you launch, or at least we are not smart enough to know. So, but like I said, what appears to be the biggest risk right now is stage separation.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if this counts as rapid fire, but this is a question that's been top of mind for me. When I wrote my book about you, it was so clear to me that SpaceX was your baby. And I always assumed as time went on, you would start spending less and less time elsewhere and more on SpaceX. And then you acquired Twitter and spent a ton of time on that. You've been consumed by AI. Does SpaceX still occupy, SpaceX and the quest for Mars still occupy the same level of space in your head, or do you feel now you're pulled in all these other directions and things are different?
yeah, I'm not sure. Is there a question there?
Yeah, I mean, are you still as dead set focused on Mars as kind of your life's quest, or are you more concerned about other things now?
We're trying to get to Mars as fast as possible. There are other concerns like AI, and obviously I'm still committed to Tesla.
I'm going to go off space just for a second since I only have a couple minutes and there's loads of questions. What is the status of your new AI company?
That is not for this subject. For this call.
You're never shy to answer questions.
You have 2 minutes left.
Okay. When we were talking before on Twitter, you said you wanted a technical CEO, but you did not hire a technical CEO. How did you come to that decision?
This is next question. You have 1 minute left.
You said in your note that we would talk about things beyond space. You tweeted it out.
Yes. Well, literally the title of this is The Rise of Commercial Space. So this is not an open-ended, thanks, Ashley, the call is now terminated.
All right. I saw that, I was just following what you said on there. I thought we'd have a little opportunity. You sure? And like that, he's gone. Well, I tried my best. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much for listening. And I hope you all have a great weekend.